Let's talk about 10 red flags to watch for to spot a potentially bad client.
Hit me! Look, brother, how you like me now?
I've been freelancing for quite a while now, and we've been running ORFI Media for almost a year now. Through all that time, we had some amazing clients, but at the same time, we had to experience some really bad clients. So talking about the bad clients, it's crazy how some things repeat themselves and there's a clear pattern to look out for before you even go into any contract or work with that client. So what I want to do is introduce you to those 10 things that I've noticed that always repeat themselves, so you don't have to go through that experience yourself. So sign number 1 is client asking you to do some work before even signing a contract or paying you upfront. They might just dip out at any time and you'll be left with done work, you'll be giving them ideas, and you've just done some work for free. That client doesn't value your time, your skills, and your efforts. And so if they do pay you money and they sign a contract and you go into a relationship with them, you'll see that throughout that whole relationship, that kind of mentality will stay the same. So you'll end up doing more work or being requested to do more work for the same amount of money or even less at some point. Sign number 2 is if the client from the get-go starts promising extra work, long-term work, or work from the people they know. One thing that is guaranteed is that work is not guaranteed. I got hooked a couple of times because it sounds very sexy. If I go into the relationship with this client, I'll get so much more work, and we're gonna be running this agency and growing this agency forever and ever, right? That's what they sell you on, and they use that, most often than not, they use that as leverage to really bump the price down for your work. And you get overworked, underpaid, and depending on the client, out of work pretty soon. Sign number 3, client uses words like quick and easy. Worst case scenario, both, when requesting work from yourself. So if you hear something like, I just want a simple website, or I just need some quick copy, there's usually 2 things that's happening. 1, they actually believe it's easy and it's quick because of their lack of experience in that area. Or 2, they're actually trying to downplay how much work and effort it goes into doing these things to keep their costs low. Either way, it's a red flag. So point number 4 is in relation to unrealistic deadlines. Now, it's not the biggest red flag, but from my experience and what I've gone through, it is now for me. Why it's not the biggest red flag? Because if it's a one-off project and you feel like you can actually meet the deadline, that's great. The only thing that will happen is you'll sacrifice a lot of your free time. You'll use the time that you needed to use for other projects, and it will be stressful most of the time. So don't forget to, take that into consideration and charge quite significantly extra for that project. Now, why is it a red flag? So a lot of times, 2 things happen. 1, if it's an ongoing project, and this is, in relation to your first deliverable, which needs to be done ASAP, and you feel like you can actually do it, once you do it, most likely what's going to happen is the client will then expect other deliverables to be delivered as quickly, if not faster. And that relates all back to the previous points that I mentioned about it being quick, easy, and them not valuing your time and skills, right? Or second, that might happen is even though you will meet the deadline, you will sacrifice on the quality of your work, which means that the client will be unhappy because it won't be to their expectation, and you will be unhappy because you didn't deliver your best work, you won't be able to show it on your portfolio, and just overall everybody will be unhappy basically, right? So this is why it's a red flag for me. So if I hear a client saying I need this ASAP, I need this done yesterday, I run away. My point number 5 is about micromanaging and the client feeling superiority because they're paying your salary. That happens more often than I'd like when the client treats you as their employee. They don't respect your knowledge or skills well enough to trust you to provide quality work, and so they micromanage you along the way. It's not a dictatorship. It needs to be a common relationship, a working relationship where both parties really strive for growth and a common goal, and that's the only way it will work. There should be very clear communications from the get-go of responsibilities, and it should stay at that. Now, number 6 is a biggie, and that's communications. Communications is so important because that relates to the most precious thing, which is time. And a lot of times clients feel like their time is more valuable than yours, and so they'll be unresponsive to your emails or your phone calls or any other way that you're trying to communicate, but they will expect you to immediately answer their emails, pick up their phone, and be available 24/7. If that's the case, that relationship will never work, and you actually need to really run away from that client. Point number 7 is a bit tricky because I used to notice it only after signing the contract, and that point is the client being disorganized from basically day one. It will make the relationship quite frustrating because the lines will be quite blurred into your deliverables, your timelines, and your deadlines. So it will feel like you'll never meet the deadline. The deadline will be always pushed back. The deliverables will always be not enough because there was never a solid, organized plan in place. And obviously that's a responsibility for both client and you. But communications are important from the get-go, and if they don't do their part in being organized and have everything planned out, you will be frustrated along the way. So point number 8 is when a client asks you to copy somebody else's work. Now, there's a few reasons for that, and obviously one is being the absolute obvious one, which is plagiarism. But the second one is basically relating back to respect. That shows that they don't respect your knowledge, your intelligence, and don't trust your skills to create something unique and bespoke for them in order for it to actually work. They feel like they need to tell you what has worked for others, and they feel that it will work for them as well, and that you wouldn't be capable of doing anything close to that. So just copy that, change a couple of colors, and you'll be done. There's no reason to work with that type of client, as they'll never be happy with the work that you actually do. So point number 9 is when client asks you to do a lot of other additional small little tasks outside of the agreed deliverables in your contract. And it's crazy how a lot of these points relate back to them thinking that it's quick, it's easy, and sort of the lack of value that they think that you bring, right? So I'll go straight into number 10, which is just trust your gut feeling. I think when you have the initial talks, initial meetings, you can already sort of see a bit what their mindset is and what their approach is to you as a professional. And if you start seeing any of these red flags, even if it's not all of them, but just a few, know that that's something that you need to really think about. And gut feeling works a lot of the times. And for me personally, I'm using my gut feeling a lot now, and it helps me. But that does mean that you need to be quite selective in who you work with, and that means you will need to turn down quite a few clients because of that. But in the long run, I promise you it's worth it, because the work that you do you'll actually enjoy, and the clients you'll work with will you'll have a very long and fruitful relationship with them. So this video turned out to be a bit longer than I wanted it to be, but I do feel that all these points are crucial for you guys to know before going into a contract, because that will save you a lot of bad emotions, stress, ruined relationships, and time. So I hope these were really useful for you. If you feel like I haven't mentioned something and you would add to that list, please let me know, because I would love to know what your experiences were. So maybe that's something I should be looking out for as well. So that's it for me now. I hope you found this useful, and don't forget to stay creative.